Takashi, a high school student, laments the girl who got away after failing to pick up the signs. Saya confronts him about feeling sorry for himself and tries to get him to buck up. When she leaves, Takashi notices someone at the school gate. Suddenly, the man bites one of the faculty members, who drops to the ground. Is he dead? The other staff members are relieved when he opens his eyes. But not for long. The newly reanimated corpse starts to wreak havoc. Takashi rushes to get Rei, the girl who got away, and slaps her when she tries to protest. Her new boyfriend, Hisashi, says they need to grab something to defend themselves, and Rei calls her father, who's a cop. She can't get through though. The emergency line is already flooded. The PA system crackles to life. The administration calls for an evacuation, and everyone listens on as whatever office he's broadcasting from is overrun. It takes a moment for it all to sink in, but then everyone all at once frantically clambers over each other for the exits. Hisashi plans a route, but Takashi is hesitant to follow until Rei insists he listen to him. They happen upon a zombie, and Rei uses her skills as the head of the martial arts club to stab it in the chest, which isn't enough. Hisashi helps out, but doesn't realize the gravity of the situation and gets bitten. Takashi is petrified, though he finally snaps out of it and helps him by cracking its skull. They decide to barricade themselves on the roof, from where they see the whole city already descending into chaos. The school has been completely overrun. On the roof, the trio becomes surrounded as they try to block off a staircase. They succeed, but Hisashi is beginning to turn. There's no other option. They have to take care of him. He asks Takashi to help him over the rail. Plummeting to the ground ought to do it. It's too late though. Takashi has to deal with it himself and uses his bat to put him out of his misery. Saya and another student, Koda, get focused on making their escape. She tells him to come with her if he wants to live. The zombies begin to break through the barricade on the roof as Takashi goes over the events that just unfolded. Rei asks him for his cell phone to try to call her dad again to let him know she's all right. She uses a super secret direct number this time. Unfortunately, he can't hear them, but he urges them to evacuate. Saya and Koda debate what their next steps should be. In the nurse's office, Shizuka, the bubbly nurse, tries to prepare a bug-out bag of medical supplies, but is clearly unsuited for the situation, and the captain of the kendo club, Saiko, has to rescue her. She offers to end an infected student's life before he turns so he can die with honor, which the nurse finds pretty intense, but the arrival of more zombies has a refocusing effect. Saya and Koda head to shop class to gear up. Zombies start piling up at the door. Koda attaches a makeshift sight and stalk to a nail gun and fires when the door bursts open. It works better than it should. On the roof, Rei and Takashi get ready to leave and use a fire hose to blow the zombies back. They decide to head to Takashi's place, gather supplies, and find survivors to group up with and fortify a position. Saiko, Shizuka, Takashi, and Rei all hear Saya's screams and beeline it to her position. They find her in a fit of hysteria, drilling through a zombie's head. They all jump into action and start cracking skulls. Saya is shaken, and they try to calm her down. She becomes enraged when they greet each other casually and goes off about being better than everyone there, and then breaks down. They barricade themselves in the faculty room for a bit, where they acquire the keys to a bus. They hear on the local news that there are multiple outbreaks all over the area. An international news network reports the phenomenon is spreading worldwide, and there's talk of the potential use of nuclear warheads to combat the epidemic. They decide to team up and find their families before looking for a good place to hold up for a while and wait for this whole thing to blow over. Making their way to the exit, they save a bargain bin version of their group, who then join them. On the final flight of stairs near the exit, Takashi volunteers to test out Saya's theory that the zombies only react to sound, not sight. Quietly descending the rest of the stairs, it looks like she's right. He distracts them by throwing an object in the opposite direction, and the rest of the group start making their way down and out the door. Unfortunately, one of the discount survivors absent-mindedly knocks his weapon on the metal handrail. Might as well have rung a dinner bell for the whole campus. They all book it out of there, taking out any undead between them and the bus. The discounts start dropping like flies. The bus is within reach, and the group quickly files in. They notice some more survivors heading their way and wait for them. Among them, Rei recognizes a teacher, Shido, and tells Takashi they'd be better off just leaving him. Shido watches a student fall and leaves him behind, making Rei's advice seem pretty reasonable, but they end up taking him and a handful of other students on board. On the bus, Shido asks who their group's leader is. He's super focused on understanding the hierarchy and apparently understanding where he can muscle his way into it. He's not impressed with the fact that they have none, but sees an opportunity. The new additions aren't too keen on leaving the school and going into the city. One even points out how much he detests Takashi, but Rei swiftly makes an example of him. Shido uses this conflict as an excuse to appoint himself leader, and he has the support of his disciples. Rei knew the guy would pull something like this and won't stand for it. He and his followers can rot in hell. She's out of there. Takashi goes out to try to get her back on the bus. They can go their own way once they're in the city. But before they can decide on a course of action, another bus full of zombies races down the road, crashes, and nearly crushes them. Getting back on the bus is no longer an option. They're trapped in the tunnel by the burning wreckage and will have to go out the other way. They tell the others to meet up at the East Police Station at 7 o'clock. If not today, then tomorrow. Out the other end of the tunnel, Takashi is jumped by a zombie wearing a helmet, which protects him more than it protects the zombie. Rei bashes its brains in from behind, and they find the motorcycle the guy was riding before he was turned. On their way to meet up with the others, they see a parked police cruiser, only to find the officers dead. They scavenge what supplies they can: a gun, handcuffs, and a baton. Rei gives Takashi the gun, and some extra bullets from the dead partner's broken service weapon. They happen upon a gas station and decide it's wise to take advantage and fill the bike. Unfortunately, the pumps are self-serve and they need to prepay. Neither Takashi nor Rei have any money. He tells her to wait there while he checks the store for some cash and just yell if anything happens. Inside, Takashi tries the register. Nothing a few swings of the bat can't handle. While collecting the scattered cash, he hears Rei scream. Running out of the building, he sees a pretty stereotypical street thug holding her hostage with a blade to her neck. The guy tells Takashi to fill up the bike. He complies, but not before throwing his bat to make enough noise to attract the nearby zombies. After filling the tank, Takashi weighs his options. He provokes the guy and closes the distance as soon as he takes the knife off her neck. Takashi draws the gun, presses it into the man's chest, and pulls the trigger. He turns to Rei. They've got to go now. The undead lumber towards the wounded man as the two ride off into the night. The next day, the Air Force does a flyover and ends up capturing Rei and Takashi on camera. Not even an island airport is safe from the infection, and a spotter indicates targets for his sniper partner. On the bus, Saya and Kota theorize about the airport's safety and worry about the policies they must be putting in place to restrict access. Elsewhere, a group of thugs opens fire on the undead and civilians alike. Rei and Takashi decide to just speed through it all on the bike, narrowly avoiding gunfire. They stop upon seeing the traffic backed up on the bridge. Riot police use pressurized water to knock any disobedient foot traffic into the water below. They'll have to find another crossing. The bus crew, Team Takashi that is, weighs their options, and they decide it best to leave on foot to get out of the gridlock and find another way across. Shido overhears their plan and tries to pressure the nurse into staying by appealing to her better nature. Then a nail grazes his cheek. Kota warns him to stay away. He's been holding back for years. Now that the world's fallen to ruin, who's to stop him from getting revenge on those who tortured him throughout his school years? The group uses this chance to get off the bus and pursue their own agenda. Shido is furious, unable to let it go. Rei and Takashi find the next bridge in the same situation. They'll have to think more creatively to get across. They hear something. A gunshot? No, a nail gun. They hurry towards the sound. Takashi suddenly has tactical motorcycle riding skills, and when they join the others, they all somehow take out all the zombies, having become super soldiers in a day and a half. They regroup. The bridges are a no-go, so Shizuka suggests going to her girlfriend's place, which is nearby, to plan out their next move from there. Takashi and Shizuka go on ahead to check it out. When they all get there, the girls bathe. This is the gratuitous fan service episode, as if the rest aren't. Meanwhile, Takashi and Kota crack open a gun locker. They discover a cache of illegal weapons belonging to the sniper from the airport, Shizuka's girlfriend. Luckily, Kota knows what's up and helps prep and load the firearms. His privileged family set him up with elite firearms training when they spent some time in the States. Meanwhile, the lockdown is in full swing, but communication up the ranks is cut off. The last order the police receive gives them carte blanche, and they're losing control of the situation. On lookout, Kota notices something. Takashi turns on the TV and learns of a group of protesters who believe the epidemic is a bioweapon that's been deliberately deployed, and the whole situation is being used to justify martial law. The cops open fire on the undead, which only further incites the protesters. The commanding officer tells the protest leader to leave, and when he refuses, he shoots the unarmed man point blank. They shut off the television just as the girls get out of the bath. They seem drunk or dehydrated or overtired or something. Takashi helps Shizuka get to bed, talks with Saiko in the kitchen, and then gets into a heated argument with Rei about her dead boyfriend, which somehow turns out to be a huge turn-on for her. The cops order a bulldozer driver to clear the bridge, and the commanding officer decides to check out early. On the street, a puppy is barking, attracting zombies like moths to a flame. While surveying the streets below, Takashi notices a father and daughter trying to find refuge. When they finally get someone to open the door, the resident stabs the father right in the chest. The little girl watches helplessly as the life slips from his eyes. Her cries get the zombies' attention. Kota takes aim and starts dropping them one by one. Takashi heads down to save her, and Kota provides cover. He hops on the bike and races towards the girl. But just when he gets there, he loses his otherwise miraculous control of the bike, and it wrecks against a brick pillar. The zombie-hating noisy little puppy from before found the girl and tries to defend her. The smart little guy clues into the fact that Takashi is there to help as he starts busting skulls. Saya tells Kota to start packing up. They'll be swarmed before long. The girls decide to commandeer the sniper's wheels, rescue Takashi, and head for the other side of the river. Takashi helps put the little girl's father to rest as best he can. He tells her to be as quiet as possible, takes her piggyback, tucks the puppy in his shirt, and walks on the perimeter walls to try to stay out of reach and get past the horde. Just when things are looking bleak, the rest of the group shows up in what might be the most tactically advantageous vehicle they could have hoped for, a true military-issue Humvee. On Air Force One, the President of the United States has been bitten, and his aide urges him to launch an all-out missile strike on every other nation that might try to take advantage of their vulnerable moment before he turns. He hesitates, of course, unsure whether it's the right thing to do. Back in Japan, the crew uses their Humvee to ford the river instead of trying their luck with one of the bridges. Finally, on the other side, there doesn't seem to be anyone around, living or dead. So the team decides to head to Saya's house first, since it's the closest. The peace is short-lived. They spot some zombies on the way, and their presence only gets more dense the closer they get to their destination. Suddenly, Rei notices a wire fence across the road, but they can't stop in time and end up skidding sideways into it. Rei is launched from the top and falls prone. Takashi jumps out and starts mowing down zombies with a shotgun. When he goes to reload, he clumsily drops the bullets. With no time to round them up, he grabs the rifle strapped to Rei and starts firing off ridiculous shots that nearly friendly fire the hell out of Saiko. Kota locks and loads while Shizuka tries to get the engine running again. Saya gets out to try to help, but is less effective than she thinks. Things aren't looking good. The onslaught of zombies has no end. When it seems like all is lost, Zero, the puppy they've acquired, lunges into the fray to do his part. This inspires Takashi to make his own last-ditch effort, and he grabs Saya's empty gun and starts battering the dead, with Saiko right on his heels. They make some headway through the crowd and try to make enough noise to divert the zombies' attention away from the Humvee. Kota tells Arisu, the little girl, to take Zero and get over the fence. They'll follow right after. But she tearfully refuses after seeing the same look in his eyes that her father had just before he died. But suddenly, a group of masked individuals come to their aid from the other side of the wire. Among them is Saya's mother. Takashi and Saiko have to take an alternate route to Saya's house, and he's feeling more alive than ever. Saya's house is in sight, still some distance away at the top of a hill, and they keep having to reroute on account of zombie presence. They decide to get a vehicle and find a buggy in the back of a bike shop. They head for the river and quickly become surrounded. That is, until they drive right into the river, because their vehicle is amphibious, of course, and zombies don't seem to like the water. They stop on a sandbar to get their bearings and wait for the zombies to move on. Eventually they do, and the two resume their course for Saya's house. They make it to a park and ditch the buggy still running in a fountain to attract the zombies, and they start picking them off. Saiko stops short when she's confronted with zombified children, and Takashi has to jump in to save her. They happen upon a quiet little temple and decide it's a good place to spend the night. Inside, Takashi finds a real katana, so Saiko doesn't have to make do with the wooden one she's been hauling around. As they allow themselves to relax a little, Saiko opens up about why she hesitated in the park. It's not even about the kids, it's about a fear she has. She launches into a story of how she was once attacked and had to defend herself. She nearly killed her assailant in the process. She knew she had the upper hand and allowed herself to lose control, and she enjoyed it. She loves the feeling of having power over someone's life and fears that that makes her a monster. Takashi admits to having the same feelings as of late and tries to empathize, and it looks like murderous tendencies are a turn on. The following morning, they head outside and face a crowd of the undead that had gathered. Apparently, they made a little more noise than they thought during the night. Saiko is hesitant to fight, saying she can't do it anymore. Luckily, Takashi is there to grope her back to reality so she can get off on murdering some zombies. The entire crew finally regroups at Saya's house. They realize that clean water and power are going to become scarce sooner rather than later. Saya seems to be in constant conflict with her parents, and her mother tries to get Takashi to talk to her daughter. The crew has a meeting to decide whether they should stick with the others or continue without them. Saya then randomly loses it over her mother's callous nature. Takashi picks her up and yells in her face to shut up. At least she's there now and knows her parents are all right, which is a lot more than the rest of them can say. They then hear the arrival of a convoy led by the head of the Takagi family, Saya's father. He parades a zombie in a cage before everyone, the guy's best friend who was bitten performing an act of heroism. Trying to illustrate the severity of their situation, he straight up beheads him in front of everyone. Kota weirdly goes off on a rant about how swords are worthlessly inefficient as weapons. Saiko begs to differ, and Takashi kinda takes her side. Kota then goes off on him and leaves. Arisu tells Takashi to talk with Kota and try to make up. He considers this and reminisces a bit, when suddenly she runs up again saying Kota is in trouble. Some of the men are trying to get Kota to hand over his guns. He refuses. They move closer, intending to use force when Takashi finds him. Saya's father shows up too and assesses the situation. Kota still refuses to give up the weapons now that he's discovered what he's capable of. When Saya's father asks him exactly what it is he's capable of, Takashi steps in and says he can protect his daughter. The rest of the crew rolls up and praises Kota's deeds. Saya seals it when she tells her father that Kota has in fact been the one protecting her, doing his job for him. Shido is still at it on the bus, with cultish indoctrination and condemning those who speak up to death. Back at the Takagi estate, the crew argue with the adults within the survivor camp, who refuse to believe that the infected are actually dead and incurable. Saya and Kota come to the realization that Takashi should be their leader, as if he wasn't already. Elsewhere, Saiko is gifted a unique sword by Saya's father, pointing out that part of his motivation is respect for her father. She politely refuses, saying it would be more fitting for him to give it to her father directly, or she suggests giving it to Takashi instead. But the man thinks that he's not yet quite the leader he could be. In the end, Saiko takes the sword. Rei discusses leadership with Takashi. He thinks everyone else is equally or more deserving of the title, even the little girl. She thinks that deep down he's a fighter, and when faced with a decision, he makes a choice and acts. Oh, and then she professes her love for him. He doesn't know whether to kiss her or smack her, so she just leaves. And on her way out, she runs into Saiko, who's on her way in. Later, the school bus rolls up to the Takagi estate barricade. Takashi speaks with Saya's father about his plan to look for the rest of their parents, starting with his own. Mr. Takagi tells him that they plan to leave the day after next, and early. But Takashi says he'll be back by then, and if he doesn't make it back by then, just leave without him. Saiko says she'll go with him. He'll need some help. Suddenly, Rei grabs a gun and runs outside. Shido is talking with one of the guards, who praises Shido's father, a politician. But apparently, he was a tyrant who drove Shido's mother to end it all. His father instructed Shido to make the daughter of an enemy in law enforcement repeat a grade. This was Rei. She confronts Shido at gunpoint, or bayonet point in her case. Saya's father straight up tells her to go ahead and kill him if she wants. Takashi moves to intervene, but Saiko holds him back. This is up to Rei to decide. Shido tries to worm his way out of it, and everyone stands there with bated breath. Rei ultimately decides he's not worth it. Shido and his followers are cast out. An American submarine somewhere receives an executive order from Air Force One to launch their nuclear ordinance, and they aren't the only ones. The targeted nations naturally launch their retaliation, including at Japan since they host American military bases. The crew on the International Space Station watch in horror, wondering what kind of Earth they'll have to go home to. 4 nuclear missiles target Japan, 3 of which are successfully intercepted and destroyed. The 4th detonates in the upper atmosphere somewhere over Japan. A few minutes before the blast, Shizuka remembers her girlfriend's number and calls her, the sniper. But before she can give their position, the nuke goes off. The blast creates an EMP and all electronics go down. Shido's bus crashes, taking the outer perimeter barricade with it. The dead pour through, and before long they're at the gates of the estate. Saya's mom gives Kota a Luger and tells him to teach her daughter how to defend herself. The gate gives way and the horde floods in. The guards fall back in a panic, and the still disbelieving adults get a lesson on reality and fall prey to the insatiable hunger of the dead. Saya's father starts barking orders. They need to find a safe place to hold up. He tells Takashi to get on his way and asks Kota to take care of his daughter. The crew heads to the garage. Luckily, their Humvee is EMP-proof because, of course it is. The mechanic's not finished with repairs though and gets back to work while the others fend off the undead. As soon as he's done enough to get them going, they all jump in and set off to find Rei and Takashi's parents. After making sure the group got out of there okay, Saya's parents make their final stand. On the road, the hastily repaired Humvee breaks down. The crew ditches it on an overpass, and they continued their hopeless quest for survival on foot. Thank you for sticking until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this.